Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV, and it's time for a new episode of our online interview series, now with IsoEnergy. And we have Phil Williams here, the CEO. Hey, Phil, good morning to Canada. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, Jochen. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you. Thanks for taking the time. Uranium prices, have left the low, I would say, at 62, 63. We are now $67. Hopefully, that's the start of a new move. We will talk about that in a second. But first of all, congratulations. You guys had just some hours ago the news that your stock will trade on the NYSE from Monday onwards. Hey, that's a big thing, I would say.
Yeah, look, I think it's just part of the natural progression of the company. Last year, we uplisted from the venture exchange in Toronto to the main board. And
Mhm.
as a bigger company, we need to go on these bigger exchanges. It's where the investors are. They're demanding that we do it. And it took a little time, but we'll be up and trading next Monday.
Yeah, super. That's fantastic. So that means that you will get maybe some funds from the US, which were not yet invested due to some restrictions. And I could imagine that will, give you some more distribution of the shares and hopefully for all of us, as I'm a shareholder too, a higher share price.
No, 100%. I mean, listen, the higher share price would be nice, but trading liquidity should absolutely go up. When we look at our peers that also trade on the NYSE or the Nasdaq, they trade 2 to 3 times the volume that they trade in Canada in the US. Some days even up to 10 times. So we're looking forward to pick up that liquidity, and we've got a lot of marketing efforts underway to go and talk to those investors and find them and tell them about our story.
Absolutely super. And also, you guys had some days ago some very good step out results, which I think they are really phenomenal because at the Hurricane deposit, it is already one of the highest grade deposits in the world. You have already wonderful 48.6 million pounds at 34.5% U3O8. And now you guys are stepping out, you are, enlarging it. So, how do you interpret those results?
Yeah, look, I think that there's a couple of things to think about when it comes to those results. And we were, as you say, we're very excited by what we were able to drill in the winter. And really, what we're doing is we're exploring the property on two scales. The first scale is in and around Hurricane. So as you point out, we have a very, very high grade resource, the 48.6 million pounds at 34.5%. There's no reason that that's the limit to the size of the deposit. And so we've been drilling to test extensions of the deposit immediately to the east, both
Mhm.
on what we're calling the main trend, which is immediately east of the deposit, and on the southern trend, which is just south of the deposit. On both trends, east of the known mineralization in the resource, we encountered additional high grade mineralization, highly radioactive intervals on both of those trends. And importantly, what they show us is that there's even more potential further to the east where there's been limited drilling in the past.
Mhm. Oh, how many kilometers we are talking now? What is your feeling?
Well, look, so again, the holes that we drilled in and around Hurricane were in the hundreds of meters away. One thing I neglected to say a second ago is that we also drilled more regionally. So 2.8 kilometers away, we drilled an area called Target Area D. And the very first hole that we put into that area, we hit significantly elevated radioactivity.
Mhm.
And that opens up a whole new model for the project. And what we've been doing over the last couple of exploration seasons is really trying to show that it's not just in and around Hurricane where we have potential, it's further afield. Remember, we have 10 kilometers of the
Mhm.
prospective strike on our 100% owned property. And Area D is just one of those areas which we thought was quite prospective. And again, the very first hole that we drilled this winter hit significantly elevated radioactivity, um, just right below the unconformity.
Mhm. Okay, cool. You also have geochemical results pending as you are preparing for a summer drill program. Why are those geochemical results so important, and what do you hope to see through that?
Yeah, well, look, so it's very important with uranium, and very actually one of the greatest parts about exploring for uranium is when you pull the core up out of the hole. You probe it immediately. You run a handheld spectrometer over top of the core, and it gives you a radioactivity counts measurement. That's the measurement that we released. We also sent a probe down the hole. It also measured radioactivity. And so between those two results, you actually have a very good idea of what you have in terms of the actual uranium. But the third piece of the puzzle is you send that core into the lab and you have it assayed. And those are the chemical results that we're talking about. So in about 4 weeks, we're going to get those results back. Again, we have a pretty good idea of what we're going to get already, but it's important to have that third piece of information, take them all together, and then that information will inform where we're going to put our next drill holes because we're coming back in summer, starting first week of June, for a very aggressive follow-up program for all of the results that we just released.
Mhm. Okay, super. And will you also follow up then already of your new geophysical interpretation, which expands the La Roque trend target inventory? Meaning, you have, I think, guys, you had a 2.5 kilometer long trend with only two historic drill holes. Is that something you also want to follow up already in summer?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, when you rank the targets that we have, we're drilling in and around Hurricane, known mineralization. We're drilling now in area D's, E, and F, where we have the mineralization that we just hit, and some very good indications of that there'll be additional mineralization there from historic drilling. What you're talking about is a brand new area that came up through some very novel geophysics reinterpretation that we did, and it's showing this 2.5 kilometer structure, which looks like a conductor that's only been tested. And when we say tested by those two holes, if I showed it to you on a map, you'd see that those holes were quite off the conductor as it's interpreted through the geophysics. So it's actually completely new white space for us. We'll definitely get some holes up in there, even if it's just to understand the geology below the surface. But we're quite excited about that because I think if you saw the press release, you noticed that 2.5 kilometers, it bends, and the other place that we see a bend like that is right at Hurricane itself. So, it's still early days for that area. As you say, as we said, there's only a couple of holes nearby, but we're really excited, and this is the point. It's adding inventory to our drill targets in a very exciting way.
Okay. So, I mean, drilling on the one side is really fantastic, and you guys really proved everything here that you guys really know where to drill, what to drill, and what you found so far. But on the other side, I think we are going into a new era of nuclear power, and to my understanding is that Mr. Trump also likes to have in the U.S. much more production of uranium, and you guys have also near-term production potential, Tony M. Deneros, the rim mines in Utah, etc. So what is the status there? Because I can imagine, or my feeling is, to be honest, from summer, fall this year onwards, I think the uranium price will really start to move. We are entering a bull market.
Yeah, look, you've categorized it correctly. Trump and his administration is very, very pro-nuclear and pro-uranium, and for good reason. So you have the country is the largest consumer of uranium because that's the largest reactor fleet, but it produces very little uranium domestically today. And even if you turned on many of the mines that are looking at restarting right now, you still don't make a big dent in terms of what's required in the country. So he is definitely ambitious in terms of promoting uranium production in the country, and we're going to be one of those players. So you point out the names of those three mines that we have located in southeastern Utah. They are past producing mines. They are ready to be turned on very, very quickly. Our focus this year is updating the economics on Tony M and getting it ready for a restart. And really, the pricing environment today, it's okay, but we're very much in the same camp as you. We think prices are going much higher, and so we're not going to turn on a project before that happens and just make marginal returns. We're looking to make significant returns off these mines, and so we're going to do the work in the background and be ready for when that price turns to turn those mines on very, very quickly. Again, they're fully built. We could be taking ore out of them any day, really, and but we want the pricing environment to be supportive, and so we're happy to take a bit more time, put together a mine plan, update the economics, do some work on ore sorting, things that we'll announce to the market very shortly, and be ready to turn them on when prices are higher and capitalize on that high price environment.
Mhm. Um, what price level would be something you would say, "Okay, now let's get the thing started?"
Look, I mean, we are very, very bullish. There is a massive
Yeah,
supply
sure.
deficit, and it's only getting worse. We've seen company after company miss in terms of guidance, and the reality is going to set in that at current prices we cannot produce enough material to satisfy existing demand, let alone the growth that we see on the horizon. I don't want to turn these mines back on till we see a plus $100 price, and we can make very, very good returns there,
Yeah.
and use the profits from that mining to fund our other exploration development of our other projects in the portfolio.
Mhm, definitely. What range do you see the production costs? I know it's a bit too early, but just to give us a bit of a feeling. Can you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we will have some more specific numbers in the coming months, but these mines historically have produced in that 55 to $65 per
That's what I
pound
thought.
range. And, uh, and so there are swings and roundabouts. I mean, the oil price is moving around quite a bit. It's constructive to have a lower oil price, of course. That's one of the big inputs, particularly on trucking the ore to the White Mesa Mill. So I'll have to reserve giving you a specific number until the results of our studies come through.
Okay, good. Now we were talking about hurricane. That's all clear for this year. Also, your three mines, let's say, ready for takeoff when needed. Can you give us maybe a little bit of an idea about your other assets? If you have any larger plans for this year, or do you say no, we concentrate now on this? That's enough.
Yeah, look, we're very much concentrated on Larock and on the mines in Utah. We will do some other work programs in the Athabasca. I mean, I think one of the things that people don't remember or aren't as aware of as it relates to ISO is that we have an entire portfolio of exploration properties in the Athabasca Basin that have been put together over 10 years ago and held on to. These are projects that are very close to the margin of the basin, so shallow targets, highly prospective, close to other discoveries and other existing operations that and we're going to do some more work on them this summer. Many of them are getting to the point where they're going to be if they're not already drill ready today, they're going to be drill ready probably after this summer. So as the market continues to pick up for uranium, I think you're going to see us allocate more capital to exploring those properties. Again, we talk about the inventory of targets on Larock. That's big. When we expand it to the rest of the portfolio, it's actually staggering how much exploration potential there is in this company. And I would argue that our portfolio of exploration properties outside of Hurricane stands alone as in comparison to any other uranium explorer in the basin that you might be familiar with.
Okay, let's talk a bit about the market because I liked it in your presentation. There is a beautiful picture of the Barron's magazine, The New Nuclear Age. And I see it absolutely the same way. I think the next 20, 30, 40 years easily is a real big thing for the world to reduce CO2 on the one hand, on the other hand, to really get energy security. I mean, we heard about Spain, things like that. Yeah. So we don't know yet what really happened, but it's a bit tricky, I would say. So, what is your feeling on the market today? Also, given the fact that the deficit is not diminishing in the uranium market, right?
Yeah, look, I think that the future of the nuclear industry has never been stronger. There's a lot of noise around it, no question, and within the last 6 to 12 months, there's been a lot of talk about AI driving nuclear power, and that is absolutely going to happen. And there will be some volatility around it and some changes in forecasts about how quickly that might come. But I think it's coming fast. The truth is, we don't need that incremental demand on the nuclear side to make a very strong market. We have very robust demand and a very difficult supply side of the equation. We have mines that are not delivering, mines that are much higher cost than the current environment. So I think the setup is very, very favorable, however you look at it. And you talk about blackouts in Spain. That comes 6 days after they announced that the grid was 100% supported by renewable energy, and I have nothing against renewable energy,
No.
but I would argue that nuclear power plays a could play a very big role alongside renewables in making a very stable and supportive grid for any country, quite frankly. At the same time, we saw China today announce the approval of 10 new reactors. They're building fast and furious, and they're going to continue to roll out reactors for many, many years to come for the reasons that you mentioned. Um, I think we're going to have a lot of fun in this space, and there will always be volatility, and for patient investors who can ride that out, I think the returns are going to be tremendous.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the time to really get invested because there is bell is ringing when it starts, right?
No, you're not gonna know, and, we talked about this off camera, but there's a tremendous amount of short interest in uranium equities, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a reason to invest in them, but when the market does turn, the equity moves could be quite dramatic as, some of those short sellers move to cover, and what we saw on the way down was they were all long the trade, again, tied up in the AI. When they came out of the trade, they didn't just sell the stocks, they went short the stocks. And the reverse could be true as well, which is when the trade turns positive, really positive, not only do they cover their shorts, but they go long. And that's where you could see dramatic moves again in the equities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we also do not have in the calculation yet really is the factor of small modular reactors because we still cannot quantify what's coming from, let's say, 2028, 2030 onwards. So that's another milestone hitting the market, but we don't know how much is needed, right? On fuel.
100%. And that's just going to be the cherry on top, Jochen. And sitting here in Ontario, down the road at Darlington, a small modular reactor is being built right now. It's supposed to come on before the end of the decade. That's not very far away
Mhm.
in terms of when demand will start. And if they start coming on the way that some of the market forecasters think, it could be a very significant structural change in demand for nuclear power and uranium.
Definitely. You were talking about short selling about the equities. You also have equity holdings of easily $30 million. What are your plans there in the future? Do you intend to say, hey, you know what? We have that. Some are private even. We yeah, we make even more money when this uranium bull thing starts.
Yeah, look, we look at it in a couple of ways. First of all, we generated those equity positions largely from divesting projects that were not core and weren't part of our business plan. It doesn't mean that we didn't like the projects. They were just at a slightly different stage than what we're looking for. Um, but the great part about this is we get exposure to those companies going forward, and they're smaller companies largely, and they would have more torque to upside in uranium, you would think. But also, if they advance specific projects or the portfolio projects is such a point that it might make sense to come back into ISO, we of course have a big seat at the table there. And it's not unlike what you see in many of the larger gold companies, the Agnicos of the world, for example. They have a very large equity book, and it's about keeping some optionality and getting a seat at the table for some of these companies that are up and coming, making discoveries, advancing projects ahead, and having a front row seat for whatever the outcome is. Whether again you want to bring it back into the fold or just watch it have a tremendous run and profit from it that way.
Okay, super. So you have again large work program. You really want to do a lot. You make your minds ready to start. That all costs money, of course. So how healthy is the balance sheet? Are you fine for 2025?
Oh yeah, we're in great shape. We have just under $50 million Canadian on the balance sheet. We did a financing earlier this year, $20 million of flow through, which is earmarked specifically for Canadian exploration. We won't spend that all this year, of course. We'll have funds to spend in 2026. At the same time, we raised $6.25 million that came directly from NextGen, our largest shareholder. They maintained their pro rata interest at 31.8%. I think that's a strong validation for our company and the model and the strategic plan that we have. So we're well financed through the end of this year and into 2026. And as you mentioned, we have over $30 million of equities Again, we have no intentions of monetizing them anytime soon, but it certainly is something we could look at if required. But it's really not our plan. We think there's a tremendous market coming, and we're well positioned to benefit from it.
Super fantastic. Last thing, I said it already, $63 now to 67 in the uranium market. What do you see in the spot market? Have you, yeah, witnessed any specific movements or developments? How do you see the contract market today?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're definitely getting more inquiries directly, specifically from U.S. utilities, to look at garnering product from our mines. So they're definitely coming back and they're interested. I think one of the challenges in the space has been over the last little bit uncertainty. So
Mhm.
whether it's geopolitical uncertainty or Trump tariffs or exchange rates or oil price, any of these things lean on these utility buyers, and they sort of sit on their hands in moments of uncertainty. I think they're starting to feel a bit more comfortable. We are seeing them come out a little bit more, but I think that will happen increasingly. And I don't see any real resistance in the price from here to say $70 in the sort of near term, and then where it can go from then. It's hard to say right now, but the ultimate price that this is going to is much higher than triple figures.
Yeah, definitely. I see it also. What is your really last question? What is your tip for the uranium price, let's say 2 years from here?
2 years from here, um, look, I think it's going to be well north of $100. I think that, and I think it has real chances of taking out its old high on a inflation adjusted basis. So, dare I say $200?
Yeah, that's inflation adjusted, it is 200. Definitely, yeah. I love it. Would be fantastic. Super. Well, Phil, thank you very much for the update. Really helpful. And I would say we look forward to your next results. As you said it, news flow is coming a lot for the next weeks and months. And I have a very good feeling that we talk quite soon.
Yeah, sounds great. Look forward to it.
Super. Me too. Thank you very much, Phil. All the best.
Bye now.
Thank you. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Phil Williams, the CEO of IsoEnergy. I'm a shareholder already, and I really can only advise you have a very, very close look on this fantastic company. They are, yeah, really everywhere on the North American continent. They have 3 mines which are almost ready to really rumble, meaning to restart uranium production. But of course, they wait also for a little bit higher prices. And I think this will really start soon here from summer to fall. That is my feeling that we really, really will restart here, probably to the $100 per pound. And I think it's really time to get some ISO shares because that price niveau, that is way too cheap. That is a great bargain. And this is exactly what you want. Buy cheap and then sell high, of course. Otherwise, it makes no sense. So make sure you have a look on ISO, get some shares. Thanks for watching us. I'm in. Bye bye from Switzerland.